So I'm going to talk about ICP, and I'm also going to talk about Flux. We're going to compare them. I'm going to try to keep this brief. 3 things we're going to do in the video. First, I'm going to talk about what I was trying to stress in this video you see here when I was discussing ICP the other day. ICP versus Flux, basically on-chain execution. Teach a little bit about the technology. I'm going to try to keep it high level. I went down a rabbit hole to learn all I could, and I'm going to give you the conclusion. Lastly, we'll talk about pricing. First, let's get 3 things out of the way. I call it my housekeeping. 1, my disclaimer. I'm Brian. I'm a big dumb animal. Don't do what I do. Informational purposes only. 2, you'll see a link down below, or at least a QR code. In the description, there's a link. If you sign up for iTrust Capital, if you're in the US, you can get crypto in an IRA, tax-free gains. You can get an extra $100 if you use my link. Third thing, you'll see here I have a school community. There's a link in the description below. You can see the link here on the screen. And if you join, we have daily discussions about all sorts of crypto. I also do a daily update there on the market. And most importantly, I have classes and courses to teach you everything about crypto. Now let's get back to ICP and Flux. I thought this person's comment was great. They said, hey, this guy gets it. This is next level cloud, referring to ICP. He says, I think the problem is a lot of people don't understand the tech, and he's right. So I pointed out, and just to reiterate, one of the things I wanted to point about the tech of ICP is that I like it a lot. I think it's brilliant because you can do everything on chain. I gave the example, considering my age, there was a time when one of my first startup companies, we actually had to put everything onto a server, drive it to a data center, plug it into a rack, and get it going. And then, of course, you move along and you come out with things like cloud services where you essentially just deploy it and then they spread it among data centers throughout the world, etc. Google Cloud or Amazon AWS. And then now you've got this new iteration, which he called the next level cloud. Jamie Fawcett. Brilliant. I thought that was a great way of explaining it because you can do everything on chain, which means it's decentralized and it's more secure. Decentralized, essentially, no one can turn you off. You put it on Amazon AWS, they don't like you, they can turn you off. You put it here, it's decentralized, that's not going to happen. That was the first thing I wanted to point out, was that I love the tech and that's how it works, but we're going to compare it to Flux in a moment. Here's the second thing I wanted to point out. And this individual doesn't really have a name, it's just a handle. But what they were talking about was the AI like Caffeine AI. And I realized I glossed over it. And I said it was brilliant, but I didn't say why I thought it was brilliant. So let me explain what it is. You could write code and deploy it on ICP, on chain, okay? Let's just assume that out of all the people in the world, 2% know how to code and put it on chain. All right, so there's 98% of the people aren't going to be using ICP by putting something on chain. So they came up with what they called Caffeine AI, which is essentially natural language processor. You just speak and you speak an application into existence. And I said, look, if you can just do some basic requirements, you get used to understanding how to prompt it. You know, I want to create an application. I want to have a homepage. I want people to register. I want to get their name and email. This is what I want the app to do, blah, blah, blah. And you start talking and then it builds the app for you. So just hypothetically, the idea would be, well, you had a 2% of the people in the world, maybe 1%, whatever the percent can code, that can put something on ICP and start using it. What about the other 98%? Well, with Caffeine AI, if they can just speak an app into existence and that app is then deployed on ICP, which is how it works, then now you have the entire world able to create apps in a moment's notice and launch it on ICP. Think about years ago, if I wanted to build a website, I would go download WordPress, I would mess with the config files, I'd get some hosting space, I'd upload it. You're probably thinking, what am I talking about? Just know it was difficult. Now, go to GoDaddy, pay a fee for a year, drag and drop a bunch of little pictures, hit the button, you have a website with a domain name. You know, it used to take 2 weeks after you got a domain name and you pointed it to an IP for it to actually update on the name servers throughout the world. For those of you who are technical, you're probably going, that's ridiculous. Now it's like seconds. Right. So it was very hard. So to me, the second thing about the ICP was this Caffeine AI is amazing. And it's really a marketing tool to make it easier for more people to use it. I'm guessing GoDaddy's service and customer base grew substantially when they made this really simple front end. that could happen with ICP. If this is a simple front end to building apps and deploying them on ICP, that could be great. Lastly, and very important because I do my shows because I believe we're going into a bull run, as most people believe we are. You got like a year of price appreciation, maybe 3 of a bear market, and it goes in cycles. That's what we believe. So if that's the case, we want to make sure that we invest in things we think are going to do well. And I gave this real long example, but the example that I gave was essentially this. Just because ICP may be this amazing technology to run apps in databases in the full stack on chain doesn't mean it's going to be adopted, and it doesn't mean that it's going to run up in price in this particular bull run. It may just be behind in marketing, it may be behind in adoption, etc. So I was trying to point out, 1, I think this is an amazing technology, look how it works. 2, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate into going really high in price. All right, I wanted to clear that up about that video, but that moves us into ICP versus Flux. Now here's this gentleman's comment that said, Flux also runs websites on chain. And here's Flux. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. So I went and looked at other cryptos that are trying to run things on chain, compete with ICP. Flux did look like the closest one. Here's their website. And it really came down to one major thing, and that is the database. So when you think of a full stack, that's every part of this application, the code and especially the database, everything that you would normally, let's say, put on a server to get everything to run, can that all go on chain? And with Flux, here's what it said, because it seems like the most difficult thing, unless I'm mistaken, from what I'm reading and seeing, is the instances of a database. So here's the conclusion I got from AI. Flux can support database through its decentralized cloud infrastructure. They call it Flux OS and Flux nodes, allowing Dockerized database applications to run on its network. However, it does not natively run a database directly on its blockchain ledger in the way smart contract platforms do like ICP. Instead, databases on Flux are typically hosted in a decentralized but off-chain or hybrid manner. What are they talking about when they say Dockerized? There's actually a company called Docker. It's been around for a while, believe it or not. Years ago, I had a buddy go to work for them when they just started out. Funny story, gave me a shirt, said Docker, gave it to my son, and he was wearing it the other day when I moved him to Texas. Interestingly enough, Docker refers to them as containers. ICP refers to them as canisters. Let's look at ICP database on chain. Here's the conclusion. ICP is explicitly designed to run databases on chain, using canister smart contracts to store and manage data directly on the blockchain. High storage capacity, fast transaction processing. Now here's the actual summary of all of this. On-chain database, Flux, not natively. It supports Dockerized databases on what they call Flux nodes. They call it a hybrid model. ICP, yes, natively via canisters. Storage mechanism, they talk about Flux Drive for decentralized file storage, another Flux component, I guess. ICP, it's in the canister memory for on-chain data storage, up to 100 gigabyte per canister. 100 gigabyte, not a lot, but it's good, probably for most 99% of things. I think they may have gone to 250 recently. Scalability, Flux, says high, again, but not optimized for on-chain databases. ICP, high, optimized for on-chain DBs with fast finality. Okay, so essentially, after, like I said, going down this huge rabbit hole, it seems, unless I'm mistaken, that the big difference between Flux and its capacity and capability for running everything on chain falls down when it comes to databases. ICP does not. It was actually created to do it very well. So there is a difference there. I would say in this case, ICP can do everything on chain. Flux is close, but it cannot. Doesn't mean it's not valuable. And then here's what they say is the key difference. Well, AI. While both canisters and containers are used to deploy and run applications, canisters are specifically designed for blockchain environments with on-chain state persistence and decentralized consensus. Canisters being ICP. Docker containers are more general purpose, often used in traditional cloud computing or hybrid setups like Flux's decentralized nodes and do not inherently rely on a blockchain. Now let's look at essentially their pricing. This is interesting. Internet Computer, market cap, fully diluted value, they're the same. 3 billion. I'm not going to get into all that. If you want to learn more about it, it's in the video. 3 billion. Fully diluted value. Flux. Flux is fully diluted value. 118 million, market cap 104, pretty close. Almost everything is out token-wise. So 118 million versus 3 billion. ICP is a 30x already in fully diluted value. Let's just look at their charts. This is Flux for 2024 and 2025. Now, if you look at in 2024, a lot of the charts look like this. The big drop, did well around right before summer, dropped, and then November, December went up, and then it's been dropping, and now it's kind of turning the corner. If we zoom in even more on just 2025, you'll see that even though this is the bottom, what's nice to see is that the buying pressure, which is shown through what's called the OBV, is showing that there is buying pressure, which should mean that this price will break out. It's one of many indicators, but it's a good one to see. Let's look at ICP. You'll notice something here. Same time frame. 2024, right before summer, popped up, went down. November, December, popped up again, came down, going sideways. Looks just like the other chart. Let's go just to 2025 like we did on the other one. It's going sideways. Is it going to break out? Well, the buying pressure doesn't look quite as interesting in terms of going up as Flux did. Flux has these much higher bottoms, and it's really pushing up the buying pressure. This has almost reached the same as back here, which were much higher prices, about 3 times the price. ICP's is around here. It's been higher even at the same price. So it's still pretty low. Doesn't mean it's not going to break out. All right, what is my final conclusion on either of these? I'll tell you this. I always say full transparency. Do I own ICP? I do. Do I own Flux? I do not. I think Flux looks very interesting. I'm not diving into all their technology, but you got the idea with respect to on-chain or not everything. ICP is 3 billion. Flux is 100 million. I'm not sure that either of these are going to be really adopted or discussed or push things. I think ICP might be like in the 30 in terms of total market cap, one of the top 30, and I believe Flux is like in the top 300. So I'm not sure. Here's what I did. About 2 years ago, I was in the last 2021 run. I had crypto, and for the last 2 years, I've been buying various cryptos. I've mentioned all that I own, a whole bunch of them. I have, over that last 2 years, I've done this show for over a year, making sure I dig into all of the crypto. And through that process, I, of course, reallocated things and moved things around. Sold a little bit of this, did a little bit of that. There was a time at the beginning when I had just as much Hedera as I did ICP. However, I don't anymore. Over time, I bought more Hedera and I sold some ICP. What have I ended up with? It might be like a 10-to-1. Meaning I have 10 times more Hedera than ICP. It might actually be about 15-to-1 now. Not positive. So I'm not making a call on this. You got to do whatever you want. I always say, big dumb animal, informational purposes only. You've got to make that decision for yourself. What I wanted to do was address the things that I think I didn't make clear in the last ICP video. Essentially, I think the technology is great. I'm not sure it's going to be adopted or moved in the market much this time around. With regard to Flux, I have no idea how that one's going to do. Looks interesting. Hope this was helpful. Have a great day. As always, hope we can all make generational wealth together with crypto. Bye.